to the rumors and the things he's already heard.
Yeah.
However, it's not like a jailhouse snitch who's trying to lessen his sentence. I don't know why he would have the motivation to just walk into a police office and tell that story.
Yeah. Unless maybe guilt's eating at him for knowing this information and...
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why he would have walked in if it wasn't true.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't getting anything out of it.
Absolutely.
Well, it was at this time that the Department of Justice sat down with Kendrick's parents and let them know that the investigation from the FBI was over. That there was not enough evidence to file criminal charges.
Damn.
They said that they were able to find witnesses and CCTV footage from the school to prove that Brian Bell and Ryan Hall were in class and nowhere near the gym. They also said that Brandon Bell was at a wrestling tournament in a different town at the time. However, there are people that came forward and said that they all got out of class that day around 1 to go to the wrestling tournament, but the bus didn't leave until 4.
Yeah.
So, but that's hearsay.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that the FBI did their due diligence to find out what time the bus left, but I don't know. In 2018, Kendrick's family had his body exhumed for a third autopsy, and this time they found evidence that there was also blunt force trauma to the right side of his chest. Dr. Anderson made a file including microscope slides that proved that there was significant blunt force trauma and attempted to show them to basically any Georgia state law enforcement.
Uh-huh.
But all of them replied that they were not interested in his findings.
Hmm.
Not one government official would even look at them. In March of 2021, Kendrick's case was reopened, but again closed earlier this year due to lack of evidence. But that's it. Nothing else. The family has exhausted every single option, and there's nothing more that they can do.
Wow.
Unless there is a piece of evidence that comes forward or a confession. But until then, it will remain an accidental death.
And the family was told when they showed up to the school that his head...
Something fell on his head.
Something fell on his head.
Now, I think that story didn't stay around for long. I think that was just an initial something to tell the family. That could have been the resource officer just walking in and seeing what his face looked like and walking out and saying something fell on his head.
Yeah, it's a dumbbell.
Right. Watching the documentary, it's obviously very one-sided. It's very biased because they interview friends and family members of Kendrick Johnson. However, there was nobody from the sheriff's office that would comment or anybody else. Obviously, the Bell family didn't comment on anything. But even without all the hearsay evidence that I said, and I tried my hardest to say that was hearsay afterwards.
You did good.
Thanks. But even without those things, it's still a murder.
Yeah.
Even if I didn't know any history between Brian Bell and Kendrick Johnson, even if someone said, oh, he had 0 enemies, I still would have said, nope, there's no fucking way that was an accident.
Yeah. 3 unidentified individuals on camera going into the gym before him. And then it's supposedly 3 individuals, Brian, Brandon, and another one of their friends. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a fight. I think that either Brian or Brandon hit him with something. A dumbbell makes sense to me because that's heavy enough to possibly internally cut your carotid artery.
Or rupture it somehow.
Yeah, I think that they hit him so bad that they thought they killed him.
Yeah.
And they rolled him up in the mat, like, as a panic, maybe. But I think he was still alive. I think that he was actually dying inside the mat because he was still actively bleeding and vomiting.
Yeah.
So
damn.
They rolled him up in it as a panic. Plus, if they would have, like, hid him in another place, there would have been, what is it, lividity? Like pooling of blood, like on his back or something.
Right,
where he was
laying.
Right. So I think it was the boys who rolled him up in the mat and then hid them there until they could get their dad involved. And I think that the dad either had people in his pocket or, because he was an FBI agent, could strong-arm people into doing what he wanted.
Right.
And made the coroner falsify the autopsy.
Get rid of the organs.
I think he possibly got rid of the organs. Maybe let himself in after hours and remove the bag. I don't know. Again, that's all hearsay. But obviously the FBI found enough to know that he was interviewing people after the fact. That's
weird.
And both these boys are now just in college. I think one of them is playing football. I think Brian Bell. Maybe not anymore, but they were.
Douchebags.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I do stories like this, especially when there's a documentary that's so biased, I watch it and I record like the parts from it that I want to talk about. But then I go back and I try to Google, like in this case, I would have Googled Brandon and Brian Bell innocent and here's why.
Right.
And I look for, usually it's people doing YouTube videos that are like conspiracy theorists or anti-conspiracy theorists, if you will. But they're saying, like, here's all these things. And half the time, it doesn't make sense. But every once in a while, you'll find somebody talking about something that you never considered. And you're like, oh, shit, maybe they didn't do it.
Right.
Well, when I went back to try to find anybody advocating that this was an accident, I found nothing.
Really?
I did not find one person bringing forth a shred of evidence to discredit this being a homicide. There was not one person who said, hey, this is how I can prove it's an accident.
Man.
But there were tons of people explaining
how it was a murder.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that after they rolled him up in this mat, they thought, oh shit, maybe we can act like he went in there looking for shoes. And that's why they tilted it over and put the shoe in afterwards.
Yeah.
And there was no blood or vomit on it.
Yeah.
What's crazy, though, is in the documentary, they act like there's, like, this huge smoking gun that they uncovered.
Oh.
That, like, proves that it's a murder.
Uh-huh.
There was a point when the FBI was interviewing Brian Bell, and they asked, did you even see Kendrick on this day, on Thursday? And he said, no, I never saw him. And in the documentary, the filmmakers find this FBI report that's heavily redacted.
Uh-huh.
And then they somehow get a hold of the non-redacted report. And they find a still from CCTV footage of Kendrick walking at like 10:30 in the morning, and then like 3 feet behind him is Brian Bell walking behind him.
Really?
Yeah, and they act like, well, he was obviously lying that he didn't see him that day, that he saw him that day. So he had to have been lying about the whole thing. And I felt like that was a really shitty smoking gun because in school, half the time you're not paying attention to who's in the hallway at all.
No.
And let's say, I mean, he could have actually not really noticed him and not saw him. Now, I'm not advocating that he's innocent by any means.
No, but
that was a very weird piece of evidence to hang on to.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Yeah, it was weird. But the documentary was really good. I suggest everybody go watch it, even though I just spoiled it for you. But this is such a crazy case. It feels so obvious to me. And it's basically red tape that's keeping it from being a closed case.
Yeah. Wow.
And that poor family.
Yeah, that's terrible for them.
Yeah.
Are you ready for my topic?
I am so ready.
My topic is on some shit that's been going down in Fort Hood.
Ugh, Fort Hood is a bad place.
Yeah. I got my sources.
I'm so proud.
nypost.com, CNN, Wikipedia, and another podcast called Military Murder.
Ooh.
Pretty good podcast. So Fort Hood, it is the country's third largest army base. It's right by Killeen, Texas, and has just under 40,000 soldiers.
God.
It's just barely east of the middle of Texas, if you were to find a point on a map.
Yeah, I have no idea where Killeen is.
It is home to the 1st Cavalry Division and the 3rd Cavalry Regiment. It was also a great place to test tank killers because it was so wide open.
What's a tank killer?
It was, well, it's kind of a nickname for a lot of things. But it was an armored vehicle that had a main gun to take out tanks.
Oh.
That was its specific job. And then the Cavalry Division. Have you seen the logo, the emblem? It's a shield that's yellow with a black slash through it and a horse's head on one top half.
I don't.
Okay, well, it's a famous military insignia. You would have seen it. They're a famous unit. So yeah, some crazy shit's been going on there.
For like a while.
Yes, for a while. And I don't even go back all the way. There's a couple of things that happened that are a whole nother episode in itself.
Right.
But I kind of start off in 2015. You got Sergeant First Class Gregory McQueen. He was discharged for organizing a prostitution ring. He was actually a sexual assault prevention officer there on base.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And he got busted for organizing a prostitution ring. And I hate saying the word prostitution.
Right.
But that's how it was worded and stuff. January of 2016, Staff Sergeant Devin Schuett was found dead in his truck with a hose attached to the tailpipe going into the window.
Okay.
Devin had 9 knife wounds on his body.
What the fuck?
Including his arm and hand.
So defensive wounds.
Uh-huh. A suicide note was produced, but his wife said that wasn't his handwriting.
Wow. Was this on base?
Yeah, this was on base. There were no usable fingerprints found on his truck, not even his or his family's.
And they didn't think that was a red flag? Or the knife wounds?
They said that he stabbed himself. And then after not being able to complete killing himself, he hooked up the hose to the tailpipe.
He stabbed his arms to try to kill himself?
Yeah.
Wow.
Another weird thing, the casket that his body was in at the funeral, it was guarded at the funeral. Nobody could come up to the casket.
Why?
I don't know. It was only open for his wife late at night, and when it was open, she found his body wrapped up completely like a mummy.
So maybe he was beaten too, and they wanted to not show that?
Maybe. Now, there have been a lot of suicides that have gone on in the military, but especially at Fort Hood.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that unfortunately is pretty common on military bases.
Yeah. But some things that I thought were strange, like the knife wounds to his body, right, and the handwriting that wasn't his.
Yeah, that's obviously fake.
Yeah. In 2017, specialist Justin Ogden died, and it was ruled a suicide, even though the supposed suicide note that was produced by Fort Hood as evidence didn't match his handwriting either.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder how closely these two, like how close in time did these happen?
Within a year of each other. So one happened in January of 2016, and this one, I don't have the month, but it was in 2017.
Do you know how closely these two were related? Like, were they in the same company? Did they live in the same area?
I don't know, and it's such a huge base.
Right.
I mean, it's possible they could have been, but they were different ranks. Oh, yeah, one was a staff sergeant. The first one was a staff sergeant, and this one's a specialist, so they wouldn't be together at all.
Right, but they had to have a common known person, because it's weird for someone to have the same MO.
Yeah, suicide notes that don't match, unless it's kind of like the MO for the base.
Yeah, that's true, and I wonder if they were even thought to compare both suicide notes, or like kept them.
Yeah, I don't know. In 2020, there were 39 soldiers from Fort Hood that died or went missing.
39 in 1 year?
Yeah. Out of the 39, 13 were suicides, 5 were murdered, and 11 of the deaths total were unsolved.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sure if you take a statistic of 40,000 people, 39 out of 40,000 is a low percentage. However, this is a military base. Every single action you take should have some sort of record of it.
Right.
The comings and goings and daily routine type shit should be known of people living inside a military base.
Right.
So for 11 people to go missing...
Well, we don't know. Just 11 of those 39 deaths were unsolved.
Okay.
But then we also find out that the way they solve some of these cases are by ruling them suicides when handwriting doesn't match and there's weird stuff about it. The Secretary of the Army, he said that Fort Hood has one of the highest rates of murder, sexual assault, and harassment out of all military bases in the U.S. Now we're going to talk about PFC Vanessa Guillen. She was born in 1999. She's from Houston, Texas. She graduated high school in 2018 in the top 15% of her class. I was the bottom 15%.
You were lucky to graduate.
Yes, I was. She joined the Army immediately, and she got into small arms and artillery repair. And she got stationed at Fort Hood as her first duty station. Okay, so now it's April 23rd, 2020, and she's supposed to report in at about 4 o'clock p.m. to basically do a favor for somebody else.
Okay.
The base is on lockdown at the time because it's of COVID. Mm-hmm. This is when it first started.
Right.
And so everything's a little more relaxed on base. People reporting in at different times. It's the whole schedule's thrown off.
Right.
So she never shows up. Vanessa's keys, ID, military ID, and debit card were found in the armory where she worked, but no Vanessa. Her car was in the parking lot where she worked, though. She was last seen the day before on the 22nd in the parking lot